Sure, my name's Daniel Baldwin.
So Daniel, can you tell me a little bit about what you do, please?
Yep. I'm a filmmaker, I guess. It's funny calling myself that because I've not really had a conventional route to get here. And I have there's a bit of a weird shape to what I do, but I guess it's a consequence of that. In as much as I didn't go to film school, I didn't work my way up from the bottom in a production company, which is, kind of some advice that I got given, like a few years ago. And I do find myself kind of constantly wondering whether or not that's going to prove to be a fatal flaw, to be honest with you. But I'm just plowing on as hoping for the best. I guess I just wanted to make films, so I started just doing it in my time off work, in the evenings, at weekends. And 7 years ago, I basically got to the point where I could go freelance as a producer-director, and now I do that, and I work with a team who I'm really close to, sort of tight team, and I've known some of them, since I was a kid. So I tend to have one long-form, slower burn project on the go at any given time, and I've been making one since January 2016 about social isolation and loneliness. And while that's sort of in the background going along, I work on commissions to make shorter form stuff. So from mini documentaries for broadcasters who want to explore what their audiences think of a particular program genre or something like that, on the one hand, to making something for an organisation who want to champion some kind of social agenda, like payday loans, anti-payday loans piece or something like that. And various things in between. So it's a mixed bag. I at the moment anyway, and I would love for that to change, and I hope in time it changes. I'd love to be focused on longer form documentary projects, but not really many people are in that position, to be honest with you. One day perhaps I'll get there with a lot of work. I'll be somewhere near, but we'll see.
So I know you from the fact that you directed the really beautiful Sea Change documentary that was shot while we were on the Lord Nelson ship. What were the biggest challenges of working in an environment like that?
Oh, yeah. There were kind of two main ones. One of them is related to the kind of stuff that we had to use. We had a lot of kit, and there's an obvious problem with having loads of kit and not much space to do mundane things and essential things like charging batteries and backing up rushes and storing stuff, big bags and things like that. But we may do, mainly because everyone was pretty accommodating, and including the captain. She didn't even complain once about us leaving things charging and various plugs and stuff dotted about the place. So that was all right. I mean, that could have been more of a problem than it was. And then also, I guess, the other thing about having equipment like that is you have to be very careful not to hurt other people with it and hurt ourselves using it in that kind of environment. So that was constantly on our minds. And then, so that's more of a kind of technical and equipment-based thing. But then there's, for me personally, I guess as a director, because that's the job of my DOP, a lot. I guess, but when my producer hat, I had to also be aware of that stuff and do risk assessments and stuff. But largely it was Ed who had the camera, and I was just trusting that he wasn't going to drop it on anyone's head or toes. But then from my point of view, I guess as a director, is on that ship, a lot of the magic that happens largely stems from the fact that it is a really intimate environment. And getting the balance right in terms of letting you, Jack, and Laurie, and everyone else for that matter, have the space that everyone needed to live their experience, live your experience, without feeling harassed or interrupted by us filming, was really, I think that's probably the most important thing to me. That was the most important thing to me when we were on the ship, and that was constantly on my mind. So not to overstep the mark, and it would have been very easy to do that given how close proximity-wise we all were with each other and how intense the experience was for anyone. Having a film crew there, I knew was adding something to the mix that was something that I had to be very careful with.
I think the reason it worked though was the fact that you were crew as well. You sort of mucked in. I mean, we all skived at times. We managed to kind of pull the "we're filming" card and skive out some of the cleaning and stuff. But I think the fact that you guys were sort of there, working with us, that it kind of actually made it a lot easier, and it made us kind of trust you more, I guess, as well. We kind of became closer with you, so we sort of shared stuff we probably wouldn't have normally shared had we felt that we didn't trust you. And I think the interesting thing to me is that if you're a director and you're capturing real life, I assume you start with a really rough story thread in your head of sort of where you want to go with it. And I guess when you're then filming with people, your sort of idea of this shifts and adapts as you film. Is that the case here? And can you tell me a bit about that, if that's how it works?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. That is the case. But before I go into it, actually, interesting point you made about the being close to you guys, and therefore you feeling like maybe sharing more than you would normally. That's actually something that, as a director, you've got to be very careful with in terms of like it's an ethical relationship that you have to manage very carefully. In as much as you always want to be in a sort of dynamic with someone that you're working with in terms of filming with them, where they're in control, or they at least feel like they're in control of what they share all the time. And surreptitious directors play with that boundary a little bit and, let's say, befriend people a little bit too much and have a less than professional filming relationship with their collaborators. So I was careful, because I also felt what you're talking about. I felt that it was an environment that would lead to people being more open to sharing, and like that's the spirit of the place. But I have to say, I was conscious that it was more heightened than it even normally is, and it's something that you're normally having to be quite careful as a director. To make sure that the people you're working with are empowered to make the decisions about what it is that they share or disclose.
I think we were aware all the time there was a bloody great camera in our faces, so like we were aware that what we were saying was, was being recorded. So I think it's on our part to be wise as well, isn't it?
Yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah, but I digress. Back to your point about what happens when you're sort of chasing a story, or when you're filming, and how what you start with and how that evolves. I mean, basically, it wasn't that complex. The ship was moving from Poole to London, and the story, the kind of in terms of like if I was to map out on a bit of paper and say what is the film going to show, where do you start and where do you end? It was really the voyage. You start with people coming onto a ship, you finish with them leaving it, or possibly talking to them afterwards. I mean, that's what I thought at the beginning, and that didn't change. The locations were important. The Poole bit and the London bit were particularly important to me. What was important was that I had made the decision I had done to focus on your team, or your watch team, or whatever you want to call it. After talking to the majority of people that were going, the majority of people that were going to take part, and there's almost 40. I must have had 30 phone calls before the voyage in order to sort of make a decision about who I thought would be good to film with. And because of those conversations, I had a good idea of where you were coming from and what I wanted to explore with you, and from a personal point of view, is in your personal point of view. And I also wanted to document what you did each day and try and make a film that would, I guess, ultimately help people watching it feel what you went through emotionally, Jack and Laurie. But the thing about documentaries, you can't really predict what happens after you get to that point. You can do all the planning and all the decision making and all the kind of profiling and everything else where you're like, I think I've made the right decisions. But then you start filming and you have to be responsive, sensitively, and you have to respond quickly and do the best you can to kind of, catch things as they happen, or anticipate as best you can. But, you miss things, but also not just missing things. You have to keep in mind the original thought or the original intention you have for the piece. It's really important to do that, but that can and does change often too. So you don't. But what's really interesting, you don't really know what film you've got until you finish filming it and you sit down to start editing it. I remember I read, something, when I first started getting into this. I picked up a really popular book that's written by a guy called Michael Rabinger. It's called Directing the Documentary. And in that book, he describes the process of when you're filming, you're chasing the idea of a film. You have an idea for something in your head that is what you're hoping to communicate. But then there's a really interesting moment of transition where you sit down in the edit and you realise as a director that you can only make the film that is in the rushes. And sometimes it's a very different thing than the thing that you thought you were filming while you were out chasing people around with cameras. And often that can be really difficult and kind of depressing sometimes. But in this case, I was really fortunate because the film that I hoped I was making while we were filming ended up being the one we could make when we sat down to edit, which was fortunate. And I guess the thing I was chasing, to go back to the thing I was keeping in my head was it was I wanted to make a warm story. I guess, it was just really about the experiences of a few people on board that ship, of what it was like in terms of, being there, going through what you went through on a day-to-day basis, but also in terms of a sort of sense of personal evolution as well.
I think you achieved that, definitely, and the amount of people that have said to me since how beautiful it was.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to hear when people say that, I have to say. But I mean, for me, like, there was a broader point here as well. So as well as it being about your personal experience and the journey that you guys went on, and that was really the point of it, there's another point. There's a kind of like a more sort of a meta level point that I was holding on to, as well as making sure that I was documenting things as sensitively and as accurately and also authentically as I could, which was this idea of, you know, people being thrown together with strangers in an unfamiliar environment and doing somthing practical that none of them had ever done before. And I knew at the beginning that in those environments, people are really at their best off, you know, in those kind of, with those sorts of things going on in those sorts of environments. And for me, the opportunity to make a really positive film that showed people at their best, humans, you know, doing nice things with each other, was a bit of a tonic, given the social climate that we have now. It's a bit sharp-elbowed and a bit harangued by identity politics and stuff like that. It was a nice bubble to be in for a week, and not just, it wasn't just nice to experience it, but for me that was something that I had in my mind all the time, that I wanted the film to communicate, because I thought that was the heart of it. From a sort of a social observational point of view, is that's what was going on the ship. People were connecting in ways that they don't normally do, and that was what I wanted to make the film about. So I had that in my head the whole time.
I couldn't agree more. I think it was really successful at that, and actually it's almost like its own little planet for a bit. It's kind of its own little world, and you create this kind of environment in it, and it was kind of weird getting off it. My mum said when she came to collect me that I was almost like a child that didn't want to leave school. I was like, you know, excited. I had fun with my friends, and like she said, we all had this look on our face that no one would ever understand what we'd been through, almost like survivors of some sort of, you know, disaster, but like in a good way. She said we sort of all looked like we didn't want to leave because we would never be able to speak to people again who'd understand, or never spend that much time again with people who'd been something through it like with us.
Yeah, it's nice.
But in a good way, not in like a disaster way.
Yeah, that's funny, because it reminds me of when I remember standing there with Ed, and it was weird for us to decide the moment we were going to stop filming. Do we film the moment where people's families come to meet them? Do we, you know, where does it stop? You know, it was a bizarre one, but but we decided not to, and we didn't film on the last day at all. It was the right decision in the end. You know, it was the right thing to do. But it was funny because we felt similarly to what, you know, like to you. You know, we thought it hadn't sort of finished yet, and we weren't ready to leave yet. So to decide to stop filming was quite a big moment, because it represented some sort of closure on quite a, you know, an intense and, you know, wonderful 5-day experience. And it was quite a cold decision to have to make.
Yeah.
So I can relate to what you're describing quite well.
So the documentary focused in on the stories of kind of, well, 3 of us mainly, but sort of our watch in total. Did you actually learn anything about us as individuals that surprised you? Putting you on the spot now.
Be honest, yeah, I will. It's putting me on the spot a little bit, because how can I say something positive? I mean, first off, I guess in general terms, I haven't done a lot of this, but every time I make a film, I'm always surprised by how generous people are when they decide to get involved with me making one, and they agree to be filmed and to collaborate on something. How open and, you know, I mean, I guess in your cases, given how intense the environment was, the level of honesty, patience and tolerance you guys had for us to have the cameras there, in addition to it being a quite hostile, new, novel environment, was something that was, you know, I appreciated massively. I'm always surprised by it. As I say, it feels like a hugely generous act. And that doesn't stop surprising me. And I think it's right for it not to stop surprising me, because I don't think I should ever take it for granted. So there's that. But then, okay, so specifically individuals, okay. Laurie's, it's quite easy to say, because Laurie never cracked. Like, Laurie just walked around, and I kept overhearing conversations where people would sort of say, oh, you know, she's just so wonderful to have around. You know, it's so nice getting woken up by her. And people were saying this at like 3:30 in the morning, when she was tapping on their bunks to wake them up for a shift that started at 4. So not the kind of time that you'd be like loving your alarm clock, but she had this sort of positive, warm, wonderful influence on the whole environment. And what was really funny was that I just didn't think that was. I thought that it couldn't possibly last without there being one crack, like a bad word, like an expletive, like her cursing at something or being annoyed about something. But no, she didn't. She didn't. She didn't do any of that. So I was surprised at how consistent she was. And as I say, day and night, leaving everyone slightly better when they walk past her, basically.
Yeah.
That was a surprise that someone could be so nice. She's just that lovely, I guess. Jack, I mean, you know what? He couldn't. He was a bit of a boring, wasn't he? He sort of, I thought he might, be a bit more fun to be around. He didn't really, mess around very much. He didn't drink, nothing like, I'm joking. No, seriously, Jack's a remarkable bloke, and a force. He sort of stays with me. I have him in my thoughts, actually, just because of the way he laughs at what happened to him, and his appetite for taking even more risks. It's almost like his appetite for risk, instead of being kind of, put in a box after what happened, falling off this bike and injuring himself in the way he did. He's looking for new opportunities to do even more. That's even more risky. And he's got some really inspirational plans for himself over the next couple of years, and it's going to be really fun to sort of experience some of that with him, which I hope to do, and just watch what he does. He's an amazing bloke. I respect him a lot. And as for you, I felt the way that you face kind of controversy in your own life and adapt to new challenges and new calls to sort of reinvent yourself that you sometimes have to. We all face sometimes, but I watched you do it a couple of times on the ship, and I was baffled at how quickly you can do that, how quickly you can process a piece of bad news or something that's a challenge and see it for what it is. So it's not like you're bullshitting yourself and just putting a kind of a glossy polish on something that's otherwise terrible. It's that you really do very quickly find the opportunities in stuff, and you move on really fast from things. And that I found quite remarkable. And I feel pretty pedestrian if I think about things that I suffer, from really not being able to do that very quickly. So it was a surprise watching you do that more than once, in a very short space of time, knowing that you therefore, if I looked at a couple of months or spent that, time with you for a year, you'd be doing it a lot more than that. So I found that pretty amazing.
So now for the big question, did your thoughts about disability shift at all during your time on the boat? That is a hard question, because I have to go back to when I first got asked to do this, and I remember feeling, okay, I really want to do this. I really want to make that film, and I think one of the reasons why I wanted to do it was because I didn't know much about disability, and actually I took it on because I knew that was the case, and I was interested to find out from people like yourself and Jack and others on the ship, to really sort of explore that a little bit more than I ever have. It's always really useful, and it's really a good thing to be challenged by the subject you choose to take on. But what I didn't anticipate was quite how little I knew about disability, and making the film made me realise that. And I'll say largely because before doing it, I didn't really know anyone with any disabilities. And I sort of now appreciate how much that limits my ability to understand it, which I think is actually fundamentally one of the key sort of areas, or the key ideas behind the work that JSD does on those ships, which is about bringing able-bodied people together with disabled people, putting them together so they can both learn from each other, about life, about how to approach challenges, about how to be better people. Loads of things, and I'm really grateful for that. And I think the biggest thing that I learned about disability probably was how hampered it is by sort of the normative social discourses, the ways that we all conceptualize it and discuss it, and the way that therefore we behave, around people who have disabilities. Because if you don't know anyone in a wheelchair, or you haven't met someone who's blind, or work with someone who's got Down syndrome, you're simply not likely to engage with them fairly. And by that,
by fairly, I mean give them the space to lead you, but to define who they are and for you to respond to it. And I think, I don't know, that's really important, because I felt like, rather than being led by any preconceptions about what's appropriate or proper, I guess, if you think about what society says about how to act around people with disabilities, what I learned and what I observed and what I think I got in terms of, something that I took away with me and I hope to use, is being open and being available and listening to people. These are sort of like the fundamental lessons that I feel like I walked away with. And it's not really just about disability, it's sort of in a general sense about how to connect with people. So I didn't just learn that disability in a conceptual sense can be challenged, by us allowing ourselves to be more approachable, less quick to judge, or act through, wisdom that we receive passively through the media or conversation or whatever. And I guess it also reminded me that basically, when we grant individuals the space and the power to define themselves, when we meet them, we are acting properly. That's fair, and it's something we could all do with being a bit more like, whether we're talking to whether we're meeting people who have got a disability or not, whether we're meeting people who don't have a disability. I think it's sort of a general lesson as much as it's one about disability. Yeah.